Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley, Bridges, Buckner,
Excused.
Coleman, Cutter, Danielson, Exum, Fields, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez,
Excused.
Hanson, Hinrichsen, Huckes Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Liston,
Excused.
Lundin, Senator Lundin, Marchman, Michelson Janae,
Excused.
Malika, Pelton B, Pelton R, Priola, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Smallwood, Sullivan, Van Winkle, Will, Winter, Zenzinger, thank you. None of the others. Mr. President,
Here. The morning roll call is 31 present, 0 absent, 4 excused. We do have a quorum. Senator Malika, please lead us in the pledge.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right, this is the last day I get to do this, so I live 131 miles away. Let's hear the ayes that far away. Here we go. I move that the Senate Journal of February 29th, 2024 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
That's all you got?
That's all I got. I ran up here.
I can't imagine they're going to approve that, but you have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Senate Services.
March 1st, 2024, correctly printed Senate Joint Resolution 12, correctly engrossed Senate Bill 118, correctly revised House Bill 1013.
Committee reports.
February 29, 2024, Committee on Local Government and Housing. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 92 be postponed indefinitely. Senate Bill 97 be postponed indefinitely. Senate Bill 96 be postponed indefinitely. Committee on Finance, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 102 be postponed indefinitely. Senate Bill 123 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1041 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 1053 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 68 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Members of the Colorado Healthcare Affordability and Sustainability Enterprise, the committee has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be confirmed for terms expiring May 15, 2025. Manat Singh of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative of healthcare consumers occasioned by the resignation of Allison Eswood of Denver, Colorado, appointed. Georgia Lyford of Boulder, Colorado, to serve as a representative of business that purchases or otherwise provides health insurance for its employees occasioned by the resignation of Heather Lafferty of Denver, Colorado, appointed for terms expiring May 15, 2026. Scott Lindblom of Thornton, Colorado, to serve as an employee of the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, reappointed. Jeremy Springston of Highland Ranch, Colorado, to serve as an employee of a hospital, reappointed. Jason Amrich of Gunnison, Colorado, to serve as an employee of a rural hospital, appointed. Patrick Gordon of Denver, Colorado, to represent a health insurance provider, appointed. Members of the Colorado Brain Injury Trust Fund Board, effective July 1, 2023, for terms expiring June 30, 2026. Renee Charlotte Smith of Centennial, Colorado, reappointed. Daniel Lindberg of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. The committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 82 be postponed indefinitely. Senate Bill 121 be amended as follows, and is so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. Committee on State, Veterans, and Military Affairs, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 72 be amended as follows, and is so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1067 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. The committee has had under consideration, has had a hearing on the following appointments, and recommends that the appointments be confirmed. Members of the State Historical Society Board of Directors for terms expiring July 1st, 2026. Penfield Tate III of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Kate Siegel-Shimko of Lafayette, Colorado, appointed. Kyla Garcia of Lakewood, Colorado, appointed. Brad Clark of Denver, Colorado, appointed. The Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the Senate not approve the confirmations. Members of the Parks and Wildlife Commission for terms expiring July 1, 2027. Jess Beaulieu of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative of outdoor recreation and parks utilization, appointed. Gary Skiba of Durango, Colorado, to serve as a representative of sports persons and a member west of the Continental Divide, appointed. For a term expiring the committee recommends that the appointment be confirmed. Member of the Parks and Wildlife Commission for term expiring July 1, 2027, John Jack Murphy of Aurora, Colorado, to serve as a representative of outdoor recreation and parks utilization, appointed. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 37 be amended as follows, and is so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation.
Members, it is a zoo in here today. Not because the reason you think it is, but because someone has returned to the chamber. They let him out of the zoo this morning to visit us. Please welcome back Senator Jerry Sonnenberg to the State Senate.
The same suit he wore all session.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we proceed out of order for some moments of personal privilege.
The motion is for the Senate to proceed out of order for motions of personal privilege. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the Senate will proceed out of order for moments of personal privilege. Senator Coleman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege, please.
Granted.
Thank you very much. Members, I am honored to be able to stand here before you today. Unfortunately, the good senator from Aurora, who sits right over here in the front row, was not able to be here today. She had a group that she wanted to have recognized, and I'm proud to be able to recognize them with all of us as colleagues. Jack and Jill boast 262 chapters nationwide, representing more than 50,000 family members. Each chapter plans annual programming activities guided under a general 5-point programmatic thrust: cultural awareness, educational development, health, education and advocacy, civic, so legislative, advocacy and service, and social recreational areas. Through service projects, Jack and Jill of America creates a medium of contact for children to stimulate their growth and development. Visiting us today are the Colorado chapters from Denver, South Suburban Denver, and Colorado Springs. Please also welcome them and the Regional Executive Board Secretary of the Central Region, hailing from Colorado Springs, Joanna Bowie Pruitt. Please stand to be recognized. Come on.
Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues. I'd like to request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
I'd like to take this opportunity to collaborate with my colleague from Denver as it relates to acknowledging the Jack and Jill organization. I just want to let you guys know that you should never underestimate moms and families, because this organization has been instrumental in shaping the future of young minds, not only for our state, but for the future. And I just want you guys to know how much I acknowledge your investment that you're making in young people. My son and my daughter were active members of Jack and Jill. They participated in the battalion, and those who you don't know about, what they do is basically they just teach them civic engagement. They teach them what it's like to be a responsible citizen. And it's the moms and the dads behind this organization that makes it so great. So I just want to say welcome to the State Senate, welcome to this chamber, and I just want you to know how much I really value that the investment that you all are making in the young minds as they take their place in the future for tomorrow. We should never underestimate that. Thank you.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request one final moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It is a zoo in here. As one of Colorado's oldest and most passionate wildlife conservation organization, Denver Zoo's mission, inspiring communities to save wildlife for future generations, is as critical as ever as wildlife and wild places face growing threats around the world. In 2024, the zoo is doubling down on its commitment to the animals and its care and wildlife in Colorado and beyond by increasing its field conservation efforts in Asia and Africa, opening new facilities and habitats that will significantly expand its animal care, education and wildlife conservation capabilities, and continuing to ensure that everyone in the community has equitable access to its 80-acre park and programs. Today, the Colorado General Assembly celebrates Denver Zoo and recognizes its tremendous contributions to the community and impact on wildlife conservation throughout Colorado and around the world. I grew up going to the zoo, and I'm blessed to serve in the Senate District where the zoo resides, and they continue to create so many opportunities for so many in our city, in our state, and across the world. So please do stand and be recognized. Thank you so much for your contributions. Thank you, guys.
Senator Pelt.
Thank you, Mr. President. This morning, we have a group of young people over here in the corner that came to the Capitol this morning, and, Mr. President, may I have a moment
I
of
was
personal
hoping you weren't
privilege?
going to catch yourself. I was looking forward to that fine. Granted.
Thank you. Again, we have a group of young people over here that came to the Capitol this morning to participate in a mock ag committee hearing this morning. They heard the raw milk bill. They gave opposing and supporting sides, and the interesting thing was they had to flip-flop. And if they were in support of the bill, they had to argue against it and vice versa. So push them out of their comfort zone. These are some of our future leaders in our communities. The Colorado Ag Leadership Program, I just want everybody to welcome them there, and could you guys stand up and we give you applause.
Senator Will.
Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, members. I wanted to go ahead and take a moment before we get late in the morning and everyone's in a hurry to leave to announce once again and impress upon you the importance of Aerospace Day, which will be Monday, March 4th. It's going to be here with 55 organizations and companies from all over the state, hundreds of business leaders, students, and space enthusiasts. Most important for members, There will be breakfast at 9 a.m. and lunch at noon in the West Foyer for you. And please join us for the Aerospace Day photo in the rotunda on the steps at 1, followed by remarks from none other than Governor Jared Polis. You're encouraged to attend. And I hesitate to add this, but my announcement that I was given here says any legislators in attendance will have the option to make remarks. So don't forget Aerospace Day is Monday. I wondered if we were going to have time for breakfast. It would, another important product from our space program. So Aerospace Day, just want to do it. I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. President. Thank you.
That does sound dangerous, Senator Gardner, because we may all have to listen to Senator Bridges talk about space camp again. Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
I have a tribute today, and it's on, sorry. So it's about the Colorado Cancer Coalition and the Colorado Cancer Screening Program of the University of Colorado. And before I get into the tribute, I want to mention that my cousin, Andy Dwyer, is the program director. She could not be here today because of illness, and she has a little one with some respiratory issues. So many of you have seen her. She's been here to Capitol, testified in committee, does a wonderful job over there. But I am going to recognize her mother, who is my first cousin, who's sitting over on the side, Kathy Keefe. If you would stand up, Kathy. And also Elsa Staples and Joe Henning. They're with the Cancer Coalition. So thank you for being here, and want to recognize them. So Kathy is the mother to Andy, who runs the program. And a little bit of trivia, the good senator from Sterling had a bit of a crush on Kathy's daughter. And I'm glad that didn't materialize. So anyway, on with the tribute. It's the Senate of the Colorado Legislature convened its second regular session of the 74th General Assembly. Hereby extends our warmest congratulations and condemnation to the Colorado Cancer Coalition and the Colorado Cancer Screening Program of the University of Colorado. CCC and CCSP of CU partner with local, state, and national clinical and community partners working on colorectal cancer prevention strategies to promote health. Colorectal cancer is very common in Colorado, as the third most common and the second most leading cancer killer. Colorectal cancer has soared from being the fourth most common cancer death in men and women under age of 50 to first in men and second in women just under 20 years. The Colorado Cancer Screening Program has a foundation in patient navigation for colorectal cancer for the screenings, and with the Colorado clinic system have navigated nearly 40,000 patients in 2 colonoscopies with 286 cancers diagnosed and hundreds of colorectal cancers prevented. These findings highlight the need for both raising awareness of colorectal cancer risk and reducing stigma in order to detect cancer earlier and increase survival. I'm very proud of their work, and give them some recognition. Thank you.
Will the clerk please add Senator Gonzalez to the roll? Introduction of resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 1019 by Representative Garcia and Senator Kirkmeyer concerning the declaration of February 29, 2024 as Rare Disease Day.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that HJR 1019 lay over until Wednesday, March 6, 2024.
Motion is to lay over HJR 1019 until Wednesday, March 6th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and HJR 1019 will lay over until Wednesday, March 6th. Introduction of bills.
House Bill 1003 by Representatives McLaughlin and Young and Senator Simpson and Michaels and Janay concerning measures related to harm reduction for students.
Education.
House Bill 1044 by Representatives Hamrick and Taggart and Senator Hansen concerning Public Employees Retirement Association's limitations on employment after retirement for public school employers.
Finance.
House Bill 1096 by Representatives Young and Lukens and Senators Colker and Marchman concerning the enactment of school psychologist licensure interstate compact.
Education. Members, we do have, of course, several guests with us. The Senate is going to stand in a brief recess to greet all of our guests and then come back to start the business for the day. The Senate will stand in a brief recess. The Senate will come to order. Third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read the title of the bill on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1013 by Representatives Hartsock and Lukens and Senators Pelton, R. and Bridges concerning victim programs in the new 23rd Judicial District.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of the bill on third reading consent calendar, which is House Bill 1013.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of House Bill 1013 on third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, House Bill 1013 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Winter, Van Winkle, Mullica, Priola, Gardner. Mr. Minority Leader. Will, Hanson, Baisley, Smallwood, third reading of bills. Final passage. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 119?
Senate Bill 119 by Senator Exum and Representatives Garcia and Mabry concerning classifying the death of a parent as abandonment and determinations for vulnerable youth.
Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 119 on third reading and final pass and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 119. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, I'm going to start over for the computer to catch up. That was Senators Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, Rich, Gardner, Minority Leader Lundin, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Pelton B, Pelton R, Simpson, with a vote of 21 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, Senate Bill 119 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Mullica, Mr. Majority Leader, Winter, Gonzalez, Janal, Zenzinger, Marchman, Fields, Priola, Cutter, Coleman, General orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate now resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Exum will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed for everybody in the chamber. Will the clerk please read the title of the bills on the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
Senate Bill 134 by Senator Smallwood and Representative Wilford concerning the operation of a home-based business in a common interest community. Senate Bill 148 by Senator Van Winkle concerning allowing certain facilities to use water detained in a stormwater detention and infiltration facility for precipitation harvesting. Senate Bill 160 by Senators Fenberg and Lundin and Representatives McCluskey and Pugliese concerning records related to complaints of discriminatory workplace practices.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for passage of all the bills on the second reading of bills consent calendar, which includes Senate Bill 134 and the Local Government and Housing Report, Senate Bill 148, the Ag and Natural Resources Report, Senate Bill 160, and the State Veterans Military Affairs Report.
Is there any discussion on the committee reports? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports and the general order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Thank you. All those say no. The ayes have it, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion on the bills on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of the bills on general orders second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Thank you. The motion before the body is the committee rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The committee will rise and report.
Senate will come to order. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
March 1st, 2024, Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills being the second reading thereof and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 134 is amended, Senate Bill 148 is amended, Senate Bill 160 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 3 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 134 is amended, Senate Bill 148 is amended, Senate Bill 160 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate now resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, and Senator Exum will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the rule is relaxed for everyone in the chamber. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 155?
Senate Bill 155 by Senator Winter concerning ensuring accurate payment of family and medical leave benefits.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 155. This is a bill to align workers' comp and family benefits. It's a cleanup bill and will not change any of the benefits anyone gets, but ensures that people are getting benefits quicker and that the family leave is compensated if it's a workers' comp claim that gets approved. And I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 155? Seeing none, the motion before us is adoption of Senate Bill 155. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 155 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Next bill.
Oh, I'm sorry. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 94?
Senate Bill 94 by Senators Gonzalez and Exum and Representatives Lindsay and Froelich concerning safe housing for residential tenants and in connection therewith establishing and clarifying procedures regarding a tenant's claim of breach of the warranty of habitability.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 94 until Wednesday, March the 6th.
Thank you. The question before us is to lay over Senate Bill 94. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Senate Bill 94 will be laid over. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 157?
Senate Bill 157 by Senator Fenberg and Representatives McCluskey and Degree Kennedy concerning clarifying the application of the Colorado Open Meetings Law to the Colorado General Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 157 along with the State Veterans Military Affairs Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did a handful of amendments in State Veterans Military Affairs. We struck a sentence that was kind of a leftover from a previous draft and clarified what we were attempting to do in the law. And then we also added a section of language after conversations with the Press Association and the Broadcasters Association around including conversations of quorums that are discussing draft legislation before it's introduced during session. And then we also added a section that requires the executive committee to sort of take stock and consider the application of the open meetings law to the General Assembly. And we're going to further amend that section here momentarily.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is adoption of the committee reports to Senate Bill 157. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Committee reports are adopted. To the bill, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Senate Bill 157 is a bill that I wouldn't recommend any legislator really to take on this topic in the future necessarily because it's a tough one. But you know, in my wise old age of my 7.5 year here, I felt like this was something that needed to sort of finally be addressed and provide some clarity to future General Assemblies. This is about the open meetings law. Now, we're all aware of the open meetings law and generally speaking how it applies. But I also think we're all probably confused about the open meetings law and how it applies. This bill is attempting to clarify. I don't believe this bill really changes much of anything in current practice, in the guidance that we are provided by the Office of Legislative Legal Services. I don't think it's going to have a major impact on what we do here on a day-to-day basis. But I do think it provides clarity, and I think that's important for a few reasons. Number one, the open meetings law was put into statute in 1972. It was less than a page. It was about maybe 2/3 of a page. It was very minimal, not a lot of details, and it was you know a broad sort of statement that meetings of official business should be open. I don't think anybody in this day and age would ever argue with that sentiment. But two things happened. The world has changed dramatically since 1972, and General Assemblies over those 50+ years have actually amended the open meetings law to include different entities, to describe how it applies to the Board of Regents and how it applies to city councils and county commissions, and it exempted certain types of conversations and certain types of meetings. It added clarity on executive sessions and when that can happen in the process, and many, many different aspects. The way I think of it, were sort of bolted on. They weren't necessarily integrated into the original concept so much as added to the original concept, and that has resulted in some confusion. The other point I want to make is there have been conversations this session, especially at the beginning of session and maybe in the interim leading to session, and journalists and reporters and talking heads were discussing what is the tone of this session going to be. Because it has at times gotten tense, at times gotten to a point where it feels like we are unfortunately kind of mired in personal attacks and sort of the drama and the palace intrigue more than we are on the policy and the people's business. I am not going to stand here and say I know how to solve that problem in American politics today. It is far bigger than us and not something I'm going to pretend like I can alone fix. But I do think what will make it worse is if we stop talking to each other. I know the answer is not to talk to each other less. I know the answer can't be to move our conversations from the water cooler or the hallways of this building or on the floor having a quiet conversation with a colleague and move that to Twitter. That is not going to be good for democracy. That is not going to be good for policy outcomes. That's not going to be good for any of our mental health. That's not going to be good for the people of Colorado. Unfortunately, I think some of the recent events and moments and attacks, and yes, litigation, has resulted in so much confusion that at times people are just simply not talking to each other. That is the antithesis of democracy in a lot of ways. We should be having deliberative, hard conversations. Some of those conversations should be formal, and they should go through the deliberative process of whether it's Mason's or Robert's Rules of Order and whatnot, and be formal. Others, I think, can and should be informal, just as humans do. We just have conversations, we debate, we discuss, we trade ideas, and we figure out what the best path forward is for the most people in Colorado. That's what this is about. It's not going to solve every problem, but it is to provide clarity. It is to say that, yes, you can talk to your colleagues. Yes, you can count votes, so you know where that policy is going to be in committee, and so you can think about what you might need to do to reach across the aisle or to bring on folks who were ones who had concerns. We should be encouraging stakeholding and deliberation in the trading of ideas to reach the best policy outcomes for the people of Colorado. That is what this is attempting to do, provide clarity so that that can happen more often. The goal of Senate Bill 157 has never been to figure out how we can have less transparency. And I mean that genuinely. There have been things thrown around in the press and wherever that this is about exempting the General Assembly from the open meetings law. It absolutely does not do that. But the open meetings law, as we know, basically there are two questions you have to ask yourself to know in the flow chart of what you have to do to comply. And the first question is, who is talking to each other? Who is it? Is it a legislator and a citizen? Okay, then generally speaking, open meetings law is not going to apply. If it's a legislator talking to another legislator, that conversation has to be open. I don't think we truly know what that means, but we've sort of lived in that tension. If it's a legislator with a few other legislators, and that group of legislators happen to make up a quorum of a public body of some sort, a committee, a chamber, etc., not only does that meeting have to be open, you have to provide advance notice. So the general public, if they want to attend, if they want to participate, they can. And you have to take minutes, and those minutes have to be available if someone wants to inspect them. The next question is not just who is there, but what are they talking about? So if there's a quorum of us talking about my daughter's birthday party, which you're all invited to, bouncy castles and everything, that is not considered public business. And so therefore, the open meetings law doesn't apply. But what if we're talking about something that it's in the public domain, it's an issue of the day? Let's say it's about funeral homes, because we read something on the front page and it sparked a conversation and a few of us gathered, and before we know it, we're talking about what do we do? Wow, this is a crazy issue. Let's think about who we need to talk to, and did you hear about that? And something similar happened over here. And Before you know it, it's like, is this public business? Or are we just some people talking and throwing ideas out there and having a conversation basically at the modern day water cooler? We need some clarity, because I think we've lived with this tension for 50 plus years, and it frankly has generally been okay. Because I think we all know that following the spirit of the law is one thing. Following the letter of the law sometimes can be a slightly different thing. And it can sometimes come down to intent. You sort of know it when you see it if someone is intending to skirt the transparency laws. I think we all can understand that's different than something that happens sort of by happenstance or by discussion or informal engagement with each other. That's what this bill is attempting to clarify. What is public business? This bill, as it's been amended, says it's public business are things that are pending before a committee or a public body of some sort, or legislation that's been introduced and is in the public domain. Because before it's introduced, it's just a draft. And that is, under other aspects of law, considered confidential work product between you and your drafter, your attorney. It also says in this bill that, okay, there's been some confusion on if an email amongst ourselves or a text message is a meeting. In 1996, the General Assembly was like, wow, this internet thing is crazy. Internet, that's cool. Thanks, Al Gore. And said, well, we need to think about, well, what does this mean? Are people all of a sudden going to just have meetings over email? And so they added some language into the open meetings law about email and how it's a meeting. Now, remember, this is 1996. Email was used and thought of and treated very differently. Yeah, I had an AOL account, maybe a Hotmail account. I was born. So they added it to it. The question now is that in this day and age where we should be regulating an email exchange, an exchange between a legislator and another legislator that's in written form? Is that a meeting, or is that written document a record that should be regulated under the Colorado Open Records Act? The confusing thing is it's actually regulated under both right now. And they both have different regulations and treatment. And so we don't really know how we should treat it today because it's sort of regulated in two different ways. So this bill clarifies if it's a record, if it's a written discussion, a written exchange, that should be treated as a record. And all of the regulations of the Open Records Act should apply. If it's a meeting, in person, over Zoom, etc., that's a meeting. And it should be regulated under the Open Meetings Law. There's another aspect of this bill that says a quorum of members, or of a committee, of some sort of public body, has to happen at the same time, in one moment in time. So when we hold committee hearings, we don't hold them over the course of weeks by having several independent conversations. We hold them as one committee hearing so we can dialogue together. We can hear from the public. We can debate. We can offer amendments. That's a committee hearing. That's a and you can only have a committee hearing when you have a quorum. This clarifies, and I think this is how things are already interpreted in the practice exist right now, that a quorum has to be contemporaneous. Meaning if I am counting votes on my bill that's on the floor later in the day, the fact that I went to a handful of members and said, where are you going to be on my bill? Anything I can do to address some concerns? That the fact that I had several meetings, counting votes on a sheet, or what a whip traditionally does for, all of legislative history, that's not a quorum. And there has been some confusion in the courts on if that could be a quorum. Because if that's a quorum, that means that's a meeting, and it has to be open, and you have to have provided notice. And that would mean you essentially have to provide notice anytime you talk to your colleagues. If it could have added up to a number of colleagues, that could be a quorum of some sort of public body. I don't think that is the intent of the open meetings law. And so it provides that clarity as well. That's essentially what this bill does. Reinforces and clarifies what we already understand this law to do. The bill only applies to the General Assembly. I want to make sure that's clear, because the General Assembly is a unique body of 100 members, and we have constitutionally required processes to pass a bill. It has to go through multiple committees, multiple floor votes, has to be introduced and put on the website. Every single bill that's introduced has to get a hearing and a vote. It's different than a city council, than a county commission of 3 people, 5 people, 7 people, where it just is inherently a different animal. The other thing that I mentioned, we amended the bill a bit in committee, and it's largely from stakeholder conversations with the Press Association and the Broadcasters Association. These conversations happened before the bill was introduced, and we addressed some of those concerns then, and we continued to in committee. There's another amendment that I do want to bring forward based on those further conversations we had with those stakeholders.
There's an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment L009?
Amendment L009, amend the State Veterans
Senator
and Military
Finberg.
Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L009.
To the amendment, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L009 simply adds clarity, or it adds more detail to an amendment we adopted in committee. So as I mentioned in the summary of the committee report, we said, okay, we're opening some difficult conversations, some sensitive ones, some ones that, in my opinion, this should be the breaking of the seal, and we should just be okay with having tough conversations. I think part of the reason why we've just allowed OML to sort of get bolted on and whatnot over the years is because it's a hard thing to discuss amending. This simply says that after this year, the executive committee shall have annual meetings to address any concerns. So the Press Association, the Broadcasters Association, citizens, members can say, you know what, over the past year I've noticed members are starting to do X, Y, or Z. And I'm not sure if that actually is compliant, and I think we should think about if we should clarify, address it, or crack down. That's a required meeting at the executive committee level once a year for 3 years. And then after that point, it would be sort of upon the request of a member if they want to add that agenda item. I think this is appropriate. I think it's fair. I think it allows for a venue for open dialogue. Maybe not all 100 of us at once, because that can get a little messy at times, but to start that conversation at the executive committee level to discuss the goings-ons and the business of the legislature. So I ask for an aye vote on L009.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L009? Okay. The motion is the adoption of Amendment L009 to Senate Bill 157. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Amendment L009 is adopted. Back to the bill, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll extract myself from the well and see if there's any discussion or debate that we want to go for after this. Thanks.
Thank you. Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for the sponsor, and my question is that, you know, I come from the local government world where commissioners get to act in a quasi-judicial role, but they also do legislative roles. Would this apply to them as well? Because we are doing legislative roles in our own counties. I mean, and municipalities have the same thing. Would they be able to, is this going to apply to them as well?
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the good senator for asking the question. This bill does not apply to local governments. And it's not because we don't care about them and we want to leave them out. It's because, frankly, they haven't been asking for this. And the clarity in this bill really uniquely does apply to the General Assembly. So when we talk about committee hearings and introduction and interim and during session and a special session and how do you treat an interim committee, those are all things that are really unique to the General Assembly that probably don't equate or translate to a local government nearly as much. I also think that, as I was saying earlier, the other reason is because it just is different. I think we all have heard stories, and there's been litigation on so-called rubber stamp decisions. A lot of times that is at a county commission, a school board, a city council. That's where that kind of debate is on if what they just did was a rubber stamp thing. I think it's a little bit easier for that to happen at a city council or a school board level. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't conversations that happen and people just sort of go along with, you know, an informal plan or whatever here. But this is a messy place to pass legislation. It is different. You can't introduce an ordinance and then suddenly it's passed and it's done and there was no debate on the mic. There are constitutionally required processes here that frankly aren't required in the same way at a local government level, and there's other things that regulate that, but this bill only applies to the General Assembly. It's very narrow in scope and really is meant to clarify the confusions about OML specifically as it applies to the legislative process of the General Assembly.
Thank you. Further discussion? Senator Hansen? No? Yes. Oh, yes. Senator Gardner, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the President for bringing this bill. And I don't come down here to urge an aye vote or urge a no vote. What I urge you to do is take a good, hard look and grapple with this issue. It is a huge responsibility for us. You know, in the year 2024, government transparency is the ideal and the norm. And that's as it should be. I don't want my next comment to be misunderstood, but there is a tension between the conduct of frank, honest discussions with colleagues and transparency in government overall. When people say to me, are you for transparent government? I always say absolutely, but then I say something to them, and that is, did your high school history or civics teacher teach you that at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, the delegates took an oath of secrecy and conducted all of their deliberations and discussions in the writing of our Constitution in secret? These were not bad people. These were not people who didn't have the very best of intentions for our country. And yet they decided that if they invited everybody to come and watch, they would never be able to reach a final draft of the Constitution. Where are you going with that, Bob? Well, I just encourage you to think about that and what we do and the tension between the need to have conversations with colleagues about a bill, not a quorum in secret, but the ability for 2 or 3 legislators, assuming that's not a quorum of a committee, to talk about what would be okay. What would they vote for? What's the problem? Or what isn't the problem? Or why should we do this? Or why shouldn't we do that? Again, I want to express my gratitude to the President for what I think is a good effort to find that balance and to do so in good faith and with thought about the fact that there is a tension between the need to have frank discussions unimpeded by everybody watching what you might or might not say to a colleague versus the public's right to know what is it we are doing and how are we doing it and what are the considerations of doing it. And we need to satisfy both of those. So I thank you and I urge you to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hansen.
Thank you very much. And the Constitution requires us to vote, so that's fantastic. Yes, we're all going to vote on Senate Bill 157, and members, I urge an aye vote on Senate Bill 157. A huge thank you to our president for taking this on. Last year, I worked on a core modernization bill and touched on many of the same issues that we're looking at within Senate Bill 157. This is hard sledding, as they say. And the reason it's hard is because you're trying to balance those tensions that have been brought up in this important debate of how can we do our work, how can we talk more, not less. And what I fear is over the last 12 months, this body, this building, has been talking to itself less because of the issues raised in this important legislation. I thank the president for working on this because we need to pass Senate Bill 157. We need to have clarity. We need to make sure everyone understands inside and outside of these chambers what our rules are. And I think Senate Bill 157 does a great job of balancing out the different tensions that are required for a legislative body to work, to function, to do the jobs to which we have been elected in this fine republic that we call the state of Colorado. I think Senate Bill 157 strikes that balance, and I look forward to its passage so that we have that clarity. Colleagues, I urge a yes vote on the bill.
Mr. Minority Leader? No? Okay. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Senator Fenberg for bringing forward this bill for a discussion today. And I want to tell a little story because in December, I was doing a little last-minute Christmas shopping and I went to this old rare bookstore and found, I was looking for a book for my brother for Christmas. And I ended up finding it, and I was very excited. But right next to the book that I found for him, I found another book, and it was a book that only I would love, because it was a book that was the proceedings of the Constitutional Convention for here in the state of Colorado, held in December of 1875. And it's a book, it's about 2 inches thick, and it goes through and shares all of the different discussions of the proceedings around the Constitutional Convention. I share that because it was interesting and curious for me to thumb through and look at. And also, I understand that not everything was captured there in that book. Not every single conversation was documented. And I understand that and I respect that. It's a nice little relic of our history to be able to thumb through those pages. But what we're talking about today in a modern context is radically different. And I appreciate that in the 70s and in the 90s and now today, we're grappling with how to update our laws in order to ensure that we are being open and transparent, and that also we can have conversations and deliberate. I am grateful for the policy that has been put forward, and as we continue to grapple with these issues, I know that right now, in this moment, things are often polarized, and it's easier for us to retreat to our camps, our parties, our sides. I think the harder thing to do is to listen, to learn, to seek understanding. And that requires dialogue. I think this bill strikes that balance, and I'm appreciative for the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I thank the President for taking on this issue. This is a big and challenging issue. The law is clearly unclear. The behaviors are clearly disconnected from a specific and precise application and behavior within the law. And yet, at the same time, what we're seeking is the best possible outcomes on behalf of the people. We want them to be aware, but at the same time, we engage and we interact, as we always do in every circumstance, with human nature. Early on in the process of considering an idea, there is a lot of unknowns. There is fumbling about intellectually as you want to consider a policy. I don't know. What about this idea? Well, that might work, but I don't know. The challenge is in human nature, some of us are never ashamed or afraid to be thought of the fool. We open our mouths probably many times when we shouldn't. I'm one of those, obviously. I'm one of those who lives by the rule that there is no such thing as a stupid question. And I ask way too many questions and sometimes appear the fool by having done so, but it helps me to understand better what is going on, what the fact patterns are, what the policy outcomes might be. But not everybody is comfortable standing in a microphone before the record and the people of Colorado asking stupid questions. And so you need to create, in anticipation and understanding of human nature, some space to ask questions that are kind of embarrassing when you really think about it, or the answer to them might be kind of embarrassing. And so that is, I believe, a step in the right direction to building the best policy on behalf of the people of Colorado, is to give legislators the freedom to ask potentially politically damaging, potentially intellectually embarrassing questions in pursuit of the best possible policy. The challenge, I believe, not only is of human nature, but there's another human nature, and the burdens of this next challenge are different among the caucuses. One caucus, given the authority of its political victories of the past several elections, has the ability to, and sometimes individuals in that caucus do advocate for, the creation of policy absent the minority's perspective. They can do it all by themselves. They can have a committee meeting or a subcommittee of the committee, which is a quorum of the committee, and determine exactly what the future of a piece of policy might look like. And that is a challenge, but it's a difference between a conversation about policy and a determination about policy. And so understanding and protecting from a determination on policy being made absent the voice of the minority and therefore absent the voice of the people must be guarded against. And that is I'm double-minded on this, but I'm a yes, I want to be a yes, and that's a reason I've just given to be a no. That it's possible for a party in power with enough additional space electorally in power to be making determinations absent the voice and interaction of the minority, and therefore absent the voice of many of the people of Colorado. And so that would be an argument in opposition. Do I believe we need to try to make progress? And I was very supportive of the amendment that takes this to the executive committee to reconsider, to think again, is this working? What can we do to improve? I think that this is one of those moments where the perfect policy lies on the horizon and we never get to the horizon. The perfect policy lies at the toe of the rainbow. You never get to the toe of the rainbow. The perfect policy will require us to continue on in conversation. And so I stand here vigorously arguing, as my colleague from Colorado Springs did earlier, with regard to this matter, please vote. And you have a constitutional obligation to do so, except you might be able to, under special circumstances, under Rule 17D, find a way to escape. I don't know exactly how you would do that, but it is possible, and it has been done in this chamber before. Even though you don't have a pecuniary interest, if you have a special interest, according to Rule 17D, you could avoid that vote. But I would encourage you, do not claim Rule 17D and do, on behalf of this particular bill, Senate Bill 157, please, colleagues, do vote. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify, it's Rule 17C, not D.
I agree. Exercise your right. Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 157. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 157 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before us is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report. Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
March 1st, 2024. Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bills 155 and 157 as amended, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 94 laid over until March 6th and retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley. Rich. With a vote of 29 ayes, 3 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 155, 157, as amended, passed on second reading and order engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 94, laid over until March 6th, and retaining its place on the calendar. Consideration of governor's appointments, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all the appointments listed on the consent calendar? Oh. Never mind. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 5?
Senate Bill 5 by Senators Roberts and Simpson and Representatives McCormick and McLaughlin concerning the conservation of water in the state through the prohibition of certain landscaping practices.
Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 005.
Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House included metropolitan districts in those entities that were prohibited from planting non-functional turf. And then also the bill left here with a definition of non-functional turf, and the House offered a definition of what was not non-functional turf.
Not a double negative, though. Yeah.
Is there any discussion on non-functional turf? The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 5. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 005.
The motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 5. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley, Pelton R., Mr. Minority Leader, Smallwood, Priola. With a vote of 26 ayes, 6 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, Senate Bill 5 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Do you want to? Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 31?
Senate Bill 31 by Senator Roberts and Representatives Lukens and McLaughlin concerning local authority to enforce violations of laws related to the prevention of noxious weeds.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendment to Senate Bill 31. It was noxious, yes. Wasn't noxious, actually.
Senator, can you explain any of the amendments that came?
Yes,
in that
the
other
House
chamber?
made one small amendment to clarify that a person does not include a state agency. And with that, I'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 31. Are there any no votes? Senators Pelton R.
Yes.
No? Never mind. Not Senator Pelton R. He loves those House amendments. With a vote of 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 31.
The motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 31. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle. Baisley. Rich. Minority Leader Lundin. Smallwood. Pelton B. Pelton R. Simpson. With a vote of 24 ayes, 8 no, 0 absent, 3 excused, Senate Bill 31 is repassed. Co-sponsors, Senators Priola, Exum, will the clerk please read the... Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we lay over Senate Bill 24-045 under considerations till Monday, March the 4th.
The motion is to March 4th with Senate Bill 45 until Monday, March 4th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no?
Aye.
The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 45 will lay over until Monday. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move for the reconsideration of Senate Bill 5.
The motion is for the reconsideration of Senate Bill 5. This does require a unanimous, never mind, it doesn't. We haven't done it yet. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 5?
Senate Bill 5 by Senators Roberts and Simpson concerning the conservation of water in the state through the prohibition of certain landscaping practices.
Senator Roberts.
I guess I hadn't spent enough time at the podium down here this week. Thank you, Senator Priola. Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 5.
Is there any discussion? Senator Priola.
Mr. President, colleagues, my apologies. I thought it was co-sponsoring, but I should have realized it was a no vote when it was just a couple hands over there. So my apologies.
Senator Priola, that's easy to get confused when you co-sponsor literally everything. The motion before the body is the repassage of Senate Bill 5. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley, Minority Leader Lundin, Smallwood, Pelton R. With a vote of 27 ayes, 5 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, Senate Bill 5 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Priola.
What a surprise.
Consideration of governor's appointments. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Member of the Colorado Racing Commission for term expiring July 1, 2027, Dr. Kirsten Davis, DVM of Montrose, Colorado, and unaffiliated from the 3rd Congressional District to serve as a veterinarian appointed. Member of the Colorado Banking Board effective July 2, 2023 for terms expiring July 1, 2027. Glenn Jamron of Glenwood Springs, Colorado to serve as a representative of bankers and as a representative who resides west of the Continental Divide reappointed. Sarah J. Ochterlani of Denver, Colorado to serve as a representative of the public reappointed. Laura Rosa Falcon, Colorado to serve as a representative of bankers and as a representative of a bank having less than $150 million in total assets appointed. For term expiring July 1, 2025, Kimberly Gardner of Centennial, Colorado to serve as an executive officer of a trust company occasioned by the resignation of Laura Jean Miller of Littleton, Colorado appointed. Member of the Colorado Lottery Commission effective July 2, 2023 for term expiring July 1, 2027, William John Clayton of Littleton, Colorado to serve as a representative of law enforcement and an unaffiliated reappointed.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for passage of all the members on the consideration governor appointment consent calendar, which includes Dr. Kirsten Davis of Montrose for the Colorado Racing Commission, Glenn Jameron of Glenwood Springs, Sarah Ochterlani of Denver, Laura Rose of Falcon, and Kimberly Gardner of Centennial on the Colorado Banking Board, and William John Clayton of Littleton for the Colorado Lottery Commission.
Is there any discussion? The motion is the confirmation of all of the appointments on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 32 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 3 excused, the appointments are confirmed. Consideration of governor's appointments. Will the clerk please read the appointment for the position of Executive Director of the Department of Local Affairs?
Executive Director of the Department of Local Affairs for a term expiring at the pleasure of the Governor, Maria DeCambra of Denver, Colorado, appointed.
Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of Maria DeCambra as the Executive Director of the Department of Local Affairs.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the confirmation of the governor's appointment for the position of Executive Director of the Department of Local Affairs. Are there any no votes? Senators Pelton B. With 31 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 3 excused, the appointment is confirmed. Announcements. Members, we've been singing happy birthday to a lot of people recently. But it happens every year. We've got to do it one last time before this week is over because Senator Marchman has a very special birthday tomorrow. Will the Senate choir please assemble? She is turning 30.
Where's your no horn? Hold on, Janice. Not so fast. There we go. She got it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Senator Marchman. Happy birthday to you. May the dear Lord bless you, shower graces on you. May the dear Lord bless you, Senator Marchman. May the dear Lord bless you.
Further announcements. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today's the 606th Friday since my son Alex was murdered with 11 others at the Aurora Theater massacre. Yesterday, I saw an interview with an author who has a book out that's titled, "It's Hard for Me to Live with Me." And I thought how much that described my life. You see, people like myself and others who have been through this, when we get, a little too loud or we appear to be a little scary, you can, quit and run away from us. But we're stuck here. We're stuck right here in this moment, in this time, trying to figure out how we get to tomorrow. So I hope when I'm talking to you about this that, I'm not unique to this. There's tens of thousands who are on different paths than I am, but surprisingly, there are some that are on similar paths. And that's why I feel it's so important to come and let you know and to remind you that we're out there. We're amongst you, and we're, quite frankly, trying to do the best we can. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adjourn until Monday, March 4th, 2024 at 10 a.m.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, March 4th.